a coffee mug that you could get in the Transverse store. So if you go to etsy.com/thetransverse or thetransverse.etsy.com, it'll get you there. Either way, Transverse SE, type that in. This could be yours. You can go there. You can get yourself one of these beauties and drink whatever. You don't have to drink coffee out of it. You could drink Diet Mountain Dew, like, what's his name? The vice president guy?
JD Vance.
JD Vance drinks Diet Mountain Dew. He could drink his Diet Mountain Dew out of a coffee mug that says, "Don't talk to me until I've had my hormones," because, you know, he's super supportive of the transgender community.
Actually, just to show you how strong the grift is in this guy, apparently he went to school with someone who transitioned, and that person has released all the supportive texts and emails they received from JD Vance when they started their transition. Everything about JD Vance is just a grift to get more power. So,
yeah. What do you know? He's even lying about being transphobic. He's in the closet about being supportive of the transgender community.
Just so dumb.
It is a grift, but we've got a show since we've got that live question.
Let's just go. Yeah, we've got a live question.
Let's do it. So, yeah, the question was, how do you know if you were trans?
I'm gonna let you go first. I don't have an answer.
And the reason that you don't have an answer, because there is no one answer to it. Like, it's a complicated thing. I knew really, really, really early on, like when when I was old enough to know what the difference was, I knew I would have rather been a girl. And that was probably like I was 1.5, 2 when my sister was born. I remember that. And that was right around when I figured it out. But like, I didn't really know for sure, because back then transgender people like existed as we always have, but like it wasn't really visible, but it was there a little bit. There were a handful of people. There was like Christine Jorgensen, and there was the one girl that did it in the 50s. That was like she was kind of a celebrity. And then there was Wendy Carlos. And so there were like a handful of, like, you heard about some transgender people, and then later on in the 90s, they would have some trans people on like shows like Maury Povich or all that. But there was always a trope running through it. And the trope was always that, like, the phrase that they used back then to describe it was like, "I feel like I was a man trapped in a woman's body." And that's what everyone said. Everyone said that phrase, and that's how everyone thought about it. And like, that didn't really accurately describe what I felt like. I didn't feel like I was like trapped in the wrong body. I just felt like I really would have rather not been this one and rather had that experience instead. And so it was really a hard thing to parse, because back then there was no one to talk to. And back then, finding out information about it was even hard, because like there wasn't the internet, there wasn't social media, and there just wasn't a lot of discussion about it. And it was so much more taboo to talk about it that like you felt a lot more scared to tell anybody. These days it's a lot less open, a lot less easier to find. You can go into all sorts of forums all over the place, on Reddit, on Facebook, on Instagram, like everywhere there's a social media, there's a bunch of like transgender forums that you can go in anonymously and ask questions. What are you laughing at?
You're like so far from the question.
No, I'm getting there. It is. I'm getting there. The way you figure out how you're trans is by experimenting, is asking questions and asking the community and finding out. And one of the things that I found in my experience, and a lot of people that I've talked to that are trans that did come out and figured it out eventually, was that, like, in general, like, if it's not universal, it's not across the board, but in general, if you're questioning, like, it's probably likely that you are, just because that's not generally a thing that cis people really do. They don't generally question their gender, at least not in any serious capacity. But if it's something that occupies your mind, if it's a constant nagging thing, it's this perpetual thing, that's this desire that you suppress. Like, that's what it was for me. It was like it never was not there. It was always there, occupying mental bandwidth. Like, no matter what I did, no matter what I was doing, it was always an ever-present thing for me. But it's different for everybody. Lilith, what was your experience?
Similar to you, like I knew at a very young age, and just didn't have a way to verbalize or vocalize it, because again, that kind of talk wasn't things we had. We didn't have those discussions, and now you have those opportunities. Now I would say, yes, you're going to hear a lot of like, well, if you're thinking about it, then you're trans. I don't think it's that simple either.
It's not that simple.
I think honestly, how I went about it is, I felt like I knew about it when I got to, when I started seeing more trans people and it became more of a thing on social media. I started exploring it more. And I think, I saw a therapist and talked to my therapist about it. And I kind of, pushed myself out there and kind of explored it and found out what felt right for me. I felt like the thing I knew is that I felt wrong, and things felt wrong the way I was living my life and the way I was expressing my gender. And I started, changing that. And that's when I started noticing, like, this feels much better. This is much more in alignment with who I was. And when I first started, I wasn't going to take hormones. I was not going to transition. I was merely mostly for performance. I'm a comedian, so I would go on stage in this persona. And just the more I did it, I became more comfortable. I realized through therapy and through the way I was changing. But when I started coming out, I was feeling more confident. I wasn't I wasn't being held back by these thoughts about how I'm presenting. I often joke that, with pre-transition, you've got so many things going in your mind to make sure that no one knows that you're trans. You're doing all these things. You don't even know it's running. It's like a malware on your computer where all this stuff is running in the background to make sure you don't do this thing that people will think you're a girl or feminine or whatever. And once I started exploring my gender, I lost those things and became much more confident. And then honestly, this probably doesn't help too much. Like, once I started hormones, like, that's when I really felt like, holy shit, everything's in alignment with me for the first time. Because, essentially at the end of the day, body, yes, you'll have things about your body you like and don't like. But honestly, for me, I feel it's such a mental thing with your hormones. And I bet you if you surveyed everyone who's ever taken hormones for transition, how much did the hormones kind of help that alignment? And that you're getting the wrong hormones is my experience. And once I started,
mine as well, yeah.
Once I started getting those right hormones, I felt an alignment. Again, everyone has different body issues and things about it. I'm not saying that those still don't bother you, or that's valid or invalid or whatever. But I'm saying for me and for a lot of people, the hormones are those first step where you can finally like breathe for the first time and it feels like it's right. But I would say, exploring your gender, feeling what feels right for you, talking to a therapist about it, and just going over those things. I think that's a great thing. But I think there's this thing where you see it online a lot where it's like someone's like, I might be trans, and all of a sudden everyone's like, you are trans. No one else will ever think that. And like, do this, this, and this. You don't have to do all that. You can do one small thing and see if it feels in alignment with who you are. If it relieves the stress, if you're thinking it, there's probably something that's causing that stress, that mental anguish. Are there things that relieve that mental anguish? And it might lead you to a full transition. It might lead you to hormones.
And it might not.
The point is to like be in alignment with who you are. And I always say, I'm not transitioning to be a woman. I'm transitioning to be my best self and to like live that life that I want to live.
On top of that, I think it's a really good point that like not everyone can go on hormones. Like, some people it's inaccessible, they can't get it, or they have health issues that stop them from doing it, or they just don't feel comfortable with it, and that's okay too. I had a support group that I used to go to, and I lived up in Seattle, and they used a phrase that I found very inspiring. Which was that there's no wrong way to be trans. It's like there's a lot of, I think that the community is pretty inclusive, but there can be cliquey people who are like, there's the true scum and all that people that's like, oh, if you don't feel dysphoria, you're not trans. And they make all these rules about it. And like, no, No, it's a big umbrella. My definition for it, and everyone's different, is just my take on it, which is if you're not comfortable in the gender you were born as, then you're trans. Like that's it. Do you feel comfortable in your assigned gender? If so, then good for you and congratulations, you're cis and right on, and you don't have to worry about it. But for those of us that don't feel comfortable, well, there's layers and levels and all this other stuff that like does take it's different for everybody, and it takes work. As far as like what Lilith was saying about like the hormones and how that changed her perspective, that same. When I started taking HRT, one of the first things that I noticed, it started changing around my brain, the way my thought patterns worked, and it also changed the way my emotions were, kind of unlocked all this stuff that was there that I didn't know was there. But even more than that, one of the main things is I started feeling physically better, like just all over. And it was so caught me off guard because the doctors didn't tell me about any of this stuff. I didn't know about any of those things. I just I knew that I wanted to do it, and I did it. And then all of a sudden, like I started feeling really good periodically, and it was just like, oh, that feels nice. That's a nice bonus side effect. And then what would happen is eventually, like that good feeling, that good physical kind of warm wash of feeling physically good, it kept happening more and more frequently. And eventually it got to the point where like I just started feeling like that all the time. And I came to the realization that it's not so much that like it feels good, it does, but that's how fucking bad I felt my whole life, because I didn't have a baseline. Like I was born that way, and I always felt bad. Like, and it feels terrible having the wrong hormones in your body. And when you get the right ones, it feels so much better and so much more comfortable. And it's such a relief. And it is one of those things. How do you figure that out? I don't know. Try, experiment. Like Lilith said, therapy's great. Try stuff just even in the safety and the privacy of your own home. If you've got a space, just, wear some women's clothes, wear or men's clothes or what, however you want it. Wear gender appropriate and affirming clothes, and try little things, around the house. If you have support groups are great for that stuff. Go to a support group and try on a new name and some pronouns.
If you know how gender is formed, like when you're this big, like we're all born the same, and then it's all hormones and body changes in the womb, and all of that is an opportunity for whatever. You get too much of a certain hormone when you're in before you're born, your body changes a certain way it's not supposed to. All of those things are physical, but really it is like, how are you inside, and how are you reacting to your hormones, how you're going to change, what am I going to look like? And I get it. I think internally we all have this idea of like, if we start hormones, who we're going to look like or how we're going to look. For me, once I started the hormones, I just realized it really is about your internal feeling and how you're living your life and feeling yourself. And it's easy for me to say because I'm at this point in my life where I do not care. But honestly,
well, the hormones help with that, like a whole lot.
If you have insecurities about how you look, the hormones aren't going to change you that much. It's not going to be a thing, but it's going to help you internally. Well, I mean, it will change you some, but it
depends. Case by case, they changed me quite a lot. Okay. I could show you transition photos.
All right, I don't know why you insist on disagreeing here. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yes, and
yeah, you should learn that. Yes, and if you have a mental picture of yourself as a woman before you start your transition, you don't take the hormones to look. I mean, we'd all love to look gorgeous. We'd all love to look like that, but it really is about like finding that mental piece. And I would trade the looks for the mental piece. I feel right now
for sure
is exactly what I was looking for. And so I get it. We live in a very superficial world, and feminine beauty standards is a real thing, and it's easy to get sucked into as soon as you start your transition. But really think about your mental health, think about finding that alignment with your true self, and again, the other things are all secondary, and you can always figure those out. From there. Are you in the comments now too?
I saw one that I wanted to bring to the attention. This is LOL Dongs in YouTube says, but now I feel stuck. Insecurity about being bald and overweight, plus a lot of body hair, keep me from feeling safe actually presenting as femme, even though I am on HRT. All super valid concerns. I got real lucky with a lot of that in the sense that like I was at the age where my hairline was just starting to recede. And then I went on HRT and it just came right back. Hormones actually do take care of a lot of that eventually. It's just not fast.
I was almost fully male pattern baldness. Had a couple patches. But I actually, and again, I know I'm speaking from a place of privilege, and I'm sorry. I'm just telling you my experience. Like, I did find a place that does, hair transplant surgery, and I had hair follicles taken off the back of my head and replanted. But honestly, honestly, I'm just gonna, I never do this.
I know you don't.
That is, I mean, it's all combing it over and stuff. And then I got the forehead here, Do I wish it was different? Man, I wish everything was different. I wish I had
I wish I never had to deal with this in the first place.
But yeah, I totally feel, and overweight, I'm pushing 300, I get the vibe and I get the feeling, but it really is about where you are now and what can I do today to make my life what I want it to be. Again, like I said, when it comes to surgery, we were just talking about, like, I had an electrolysis session yesterday. I'm by no means independently wealthy or anything, but I do have the money to kind of make things happen that I want to make happen. So I understand that not everyone is coming from the same place. There was a time where this wasn't my life, and I figured out what I could do with where I was at.
I wanted to bring something up about the body hair. HRT will take care of the body hair. It's just, it's slow. It takes years. But I was pretty hairy. Like, I was very hairy before I transitioned. I still can, like, I don't know if you can see, but like you can't really see much on my arms. These were coated in like black, dark hair. My legs were super black. I had chest hair. Like, I don't have it all just went away. Like, it took a long time, and I was super dysphoric about my body hair. I'll tell you a bit of advice I wish someone had gave me that I had listened to it was, whatever you do not use a depilatory. Those things are terrible for you, and they'll wreck your skin. I shaved, and I used depilatory on my arms because I just couldn't stand it.
Just so people know, is that stuff that just rips the hair out?
It's like the cream. It's like Nair. It's like you put it on your skin, and it's this horrible chemical smell, and it basically burns the hair follicles out chemically. And I don't recommend it. It wrecked my skin, and I have all these skin problems now because of it. So don't do it. Just be patient, but it will go away. Like, your back hair will go away. Your chest hair will go away. It will go away. The only thing it really doesn't take away is your beard, which sucks. I still got mine. That and my junk are like the two things that are my major sources of dysphoria. They're both medical procedures. It's like, you got to get electrolysis, really. It's the only thing that actually does anything, gets rid of the hair. And it's expensive, and it's painful, and it's time consuming. It's the only thing there is, though, other than shaving every day and caking on a shit ton of concealer. Oh my goodness. Anything else?
How do you know, you push your boundaries and you find out where you're most comfortable? That's how you find out if you're trans.
Exactly. It's crazy. Like, we've been doing this show for over a year, and we would sometimes do 2 questions a show. So we've answered hundreds of questions.
Thousands.
Well, maybe about 100.
Millions of questions.
Dozens. We've answered dozens of these questions, and I don't think this very obvious, very like basic question ever came up before.
Because we don't want to answer it. It's hard to answer. I want to do easy questions.
There are no easy ones. That's the thing about being transgender is like there's no real roadmap for it. It's still a lot of trailblazing and it's still a lot of guesswork and trial and error. And we're all learning as we go. It's getting better. It's gotten way better in a very short amount of time, and it will continue to get better, despite some political people's best efforts. They're not going to stop it, but it is getting better. More knowledge is out there, and honestly, with social media and support groups, you can get so much more information and community. The collective consciousness on this is worth at least as much as what your doctor's going to tell you. I'm not saying don't listen to your doctor. Absolutely listen to your doctor, especially if you trust them. But your doctor doesn't know everything. And if your doctor's cis, they definitely don't know a lot of what's going on.
When it comes to hair stuff, find trans-friendly stylists in your neighborhood. All this depends on where you are. When I moved to Detroit, like I did a Google search and there was a place in town that like listed trans-friendly electrolysis places, trans-friendly hairstylists. So, you know, my doctor did give me the electrolysis first, and that's how I found them. But I guess eventually I should go see a hairstylist about this mess. But they can help you with products that might help you have fuller hair. They might also help you with styles that will help you use the hair that you do have. And keep a list of trans-friendly places you've been, because people are going to move to town or you're going to go to a trans support group and people are going to be looking for those things. And I think it's very important that we share that wisdom and share those connections and let people know where they can go to get a haircut from someone who's not going to judge them.
If anyone's web savvy, and you want to make a website, if there were a web database that was just across the world of where you could get stuff, where people could just put stuff in, hey, have at it. That would be a super valuable, good website for the world to have. Look for the flag. They'll fly the flag a lot, do it old school and drive around, and look. If you see the flag flying, you're fine.
See if your city or state has a LGBTQ chamber of commerce. A lot of those sites have people who are a member of the chamber, and they join the chamber for the sole purpose of letting queer people know that they're open for business and want to help them. I went to Detroit. It took me 5 minutes of Google searching to find an amazing resource. Just had lists of categories, and you click on it, and if there was someone there who was trans friendly, they had their information for them. So
I got to address a couple comments in the YouTube chat because they're beautiful.
It's rolling today.
It is. Elijah Marie's been saying a lot. She's talking about how gender comes from your soul, not your body. That's absolutely true. The body is it's a vessel. It's a thing that is there to carry your brain around and your soul and all that stuff. Transitioning is so much more than just the physical end of it. That's one piece of the trifecta, but it's mind, body, soul, and it really is all of it. You have to do it all together and all at the same time. It's about finding balance like anything else in life. But she's also said, not all transgender people choose to transition. Absolutely true. But obviously there's nothing wrong with it. Also true. And Shazamak, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm sure that I didn't. Says a couple things. Thanks for the education, ladies, and that we're doing the community. LOL Dong says we're doing the community great service, and that's really appreciated. We're just trying. We're just trying to help. Ms. Shazamak says, oh, ladies, you got me thinking. Business opportunity. Hell yeah, it is. If you're of the entrepreneurial spirit, there is a lot of business opportunity to help and support the trans community. Absolutely, 100%. In any case, I think that's that for that question. We can wrap that up. I want to shout out a couple things. Like and subscribe. Come see us on the Transverse. We're on the Transverse YouTube channel.
Buy a mug.
Buy a mug at shopthetransverse at etsy.com. We have a Patreon. Subscribe to our Patreon if you have the means. For I think as little as $5 a month, you could be a member of Patreon, and you're going to get exclusive content in there.
Exclusive.
patreon.com/thetransverse. Some of our stuff's in there, old things that you'll never see anywhere else. So we do these shows, we do this live show, and those of you that are here, you get to see it, and I think it stays up there anyway. A lot of the stuff that we do, we don't keep. It just kind of goes away. And every now and then, I'll grab a few things and make them into little condensed clips so you can see some highlight reels and some blooper reels and all that stuff that we do. Just rando things. Bonus content. But it's there. Subscribe to our Patreon if you have the means. It really helps the Transverse a lot, and it helps us to do this and keep doing this show. Share it. Tell people about it. Let people know. We do this every Saturday at noon.
3 p.m. Eastern.
3 p.m. Eastern.
The real time zone.
Noon Pacific.
The real time zone. 3 p.m.